Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Big Data and Analytics, a deep dive into the world of public and private health insurance exchanges. Before we get started, I'd like to announce a few brief housekeeping details. Today's session is being recorded, and an online archive of today's event will be available a few days after the call. You will receive an email from AHIP that will ask if you would like to receive the archive. Please respond to the email if you would. I'd like to remind you of AHIP's antitrust statement and ask that you reference it in the Handouts tab on the left side of your screen. The antitrust statement prohibits us from discussing competitively sensitive information. Please keep in mind that you may ask a question at any time during the presentation by typing your question into the chat box located in the lower left corner of your screen, then clicking Send. You may adjust the size of your slides to fit your screen by clicking on the Scale button located in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. We're very fortunate to have with us today Eugene Cyan. As Softheon's founder, chairman, and chief executive officer, Eugene is responsible for creating the company's vision and strategic direction to address health insurers' goal of meeting ACA milestones, interacting with health insurance exchanges, extending access to quality, affordable health insurance coverage for potential members in all markets regions. Softheon is a cloud-based software enterprise and business process automation company, and one of the founding members of Center of Excellence in Wireless and Information Technology, $100 million plus advanced research facility located at sunny Stony Brook. For over 25 years, Eugene has developed and nurtured innovative solutions that are adopted by many healthcare payers, providers, and government agencies, including Massachusetts Connector, the nation's only fully operational state health benefits exchange. At this time, it is my pleasure to hand the floor over to our speaker. Eugene?
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. And in the series of AHIP webinars, we are one more time delighted to have you with us this afternoon. And we hope that you will find the next hour or two informative. And following the presentation, there will be a Q&A frame, if you will. We will be more than happy to take your calls as it relates to big data, private and public exchanges. So without further, we'd like to proceed with our presentation. A little bit about Softheon for those of you. Softheon is primarily a research-oriented software company. In fact, we currently operate from the grounds of Stony Brook University. In addition to our full-time staff, we also have a close collaboration under our research fellowship program with 250 graduate students, PhDs, and faculty staff at Stony Brook University. We like to focus on the data. That is our core competency. We always felt that, computer science and data. And our focus has been around areas like transactional processing, natural language predictive modeling. And in that context, the big data has always been a kind of a cornerstone of our engagements. Softheon today serves a little over 50 customers. We are happy to announce that we have been fortunate to be trusted with 25 or so health plans for their ACA implementations, and that number has been doubled in essence over the last several months. And we like to, as we call it, educated consumers, or the customers or partners are the best partner that we would like to have. Part of our value proposition that we do offer a daily newsletter that we encourage every one of you to subscribe. Visit us online at softheon.com to learn more about Softheon, our activities, and as well as our ability to provide any value to your existing challenges, let it be ACA in general, big data related. So what is big data? I think it's worth to take in about a minute or two to kind of level set. As you know, there are many definitions of big data depending upon the kind of the market that you are in or even the audience that you are targeting for. At least from our perspective, we refer them as the big attributes, I will say, the three attributes of big data around. It's the volume, velocity, and variety, also commonly referred as 3 V's. Clearly, these attributes combined altogether represents a unique set of challenges. Let it be the scale of the data that you're dealing with. Typically, it ranges in the terabytes to exabytes, as well as the velocity. In other words, the data is constantly changing. And this is a common phenomenon, as you can imagine, in real-time system, more so than the batch-oriented system, as the healthcare industry in general is making a transition to a consumer-oriented, real-time transactional system. We are seeing the motion or the velocity of the data has been increasing, as well as the variety of the data. So it's not just about the data as we commonly refer to them as sitting in a relational database tables or some other data formats, even images and multimedia. We are looking to basically acquire the data in so many different formats. One good example, for instance, most recently, the location-based services that your iPhones and smartphones are basically constantly collecting and distributing the data, and the location of that data, not only about the when you make the inquiries or what you did, but also where you made the inquiry, could be a critical factor. So attribute of the data is not just about the date timestamps anymore, but it's also about the velocity. It also includes the where attribute. As you know, in big data, as we talk about the volumes, has been increasing exponentially. Just when we think that, I guess, the following Moore's law, it is what is expected. We, according to industry analysts, between 2009 and 2020, over the next 5 years, we're kind of midway through the process, the available data on the internet has gone from 0.8 zettabytes. And for everyone's definition, the zettabyte is basically a billion terabyte, if you will. So terabyte to petabyte to exabyte and zettabytes in increments of thousands. That volume of data expected to reach 35 zettabytes by 2020. And clearly, healthcare is probably going to be one of the biggest producer. Let it be on the smartphones as far as the wellness programs and trackings and whatnot, or traditional EMR, EHR applications. And now we're seeing a bigger concentration in the financial services. How to use the big data for what we call in financial management as part of the healthcare delivery and services. We did talk about the velocity. Data is being generated fast and need to be processed fast. We are seeing more and more growing needs about the online data analytics, looking at the data, interpreting the data, transforming the data. As we talked about the healthcare monitoring of healthcare product and services, I believe there's going to be a series of the provisions and guidance as issued by FDA and HHS in general about how to interpret those data as sensors monitoring your activities, your body temperatures, and your heart, the heart monitors and whatnot. As you know, Apple's recent entry into that market, it kind of renew the interest and the market opportunities and potentials about the healthcare, but the use of these personal devices. And we talked about the variety again, the variety of the data in formats, types, and structures. That should also include static data versus streaming data, and how do you make basically use of that data. And clearly, there is going to be a wide array of applications that are generating those data. So another big challenge about the format of the data, if you will. Not everything is going to be in a standard format that can be digested. So what we are seeing is that basically purpose-optimized applications and purpose-optimized formats, if you will, pushing and pulling the data continuously in the Internet of Things, if you will. Historically, big data has been around for quite some time. In fact, we at Softheon are proud to be one of the founding members of Center for Dynamics and Data Analytics, or CDDA in short. The CDDA is a NSF-funded activity, and in addition to some of the leading industry, national, and global organizations, Softheon is one of the founders of this initiative. And the CDDA's focus is on basically how do you analyze the data, and then more specifically, how do you visualize the big data. As you can imagine, traditional, one-dimensional, two-dimensional, or three-dimensional data. In the world of big data, we often talk about nth-dimensional data. So the question is, how do you visualize the nth-dimensional data, again, in the most meaningful, purpose-optimized ways altogether? This is a common phenomenon, as you can imagine, from homeland security to healthcare. And the Softheon's focus in this team is basically around the use of healthcare, especially the health delivery related data. How do we visualize and present that data on the most meaningful format? So in a few slides, you'll see the Softheon's efforts altogether, what we have been doing as a team in that area. So the big data is a big effort. How do you build that operation? What is the approach? We do see that there are very, very few organizations are looking to build their infrastructure, procuring the hardware and then the software, and bringing some of that expertise in-house. I think that this has been the model more so on the high-end financial services organizations, for instance, or maybe high-end consumer packaged goods companies looking to analyze this data in a somewhat of a proprietary format, if you will. Whereas the majority of the organization who wants to get their kind of feet wet with big data, what we are seeing is that they are looking to a cloud-based implementations that whereas we are able to provide the infrastructure and being able to provide the additional layers of security. And we'll talk about, for instance, some companies are leveraging Amazon Cloud altogether, or Rackspace, and a few other companies that have been pushing this concept altogether along the way. Where we are, I think that the challenges in healthcare is rather unique. Not only data volume is high, but data in healthcare is a little bit more complicated in that sense, just because of the HIPAA rules. Now we are in the payment aspect to it, where the consumers are making payments. We are also seeing that healthcare payers are subject to the PCI, for instance, and other set of rules and regulations, over 100 laws around the consumers' protections about their credit card informations and whatnot. So the combination of the big data as a capability has been around and provided by various organizations, but obviously these organizations nowadays, if they want to be in the healthcare space, they have to kind of oblige to HIPAA PCI rules, and as well as the ability to work with the healthcare payers in the context of BAAs and whatnot. So it's a rather unique. So the cloud approach is there again for many organizations to consider if that is something that want to get involved with. If you look at it on a general landscape, there are many companies that are operating. As you can see, the big data means different things depending upon which industry that you're in. The applications that we see in the media space is quite different than this applications that we see in the structured databases, let it be Oracle, SQLs, and DB2s and whatnot. And then we also have the NoSQL databases where the data is being stored in a somewhat of a proprietary format. Key technologies that we see is being around this, the Hadoop implementations wise, as far as dealing with the data in the petabytes range. As well as different kind of relational techniques that product like, for instance, MapReduce is being utilized on top of traditional infrastructure, let it be MySQL or even Oracles and whatnot. It giving you the capabilities around grid computings and therefore ability to process and analyze large sets of data beyond the boundaries of traditional applications altogether. Again, the business intelligence, I think pretty much one of the most crowded areas that we're seeing a transformation from traditional BI platforms into the big data. Once again, some of them are NoSQL. In other words, there's proprietary interfaces, and there are some are actually building a SQL layers in this proprietary data, and they still able to leverage and extend current set of products. I think this space will continue to get quite crowded, and we are going to see probably quite a few new innovative companies in that space as we move forward. If we look into the healthcare space, so the question is about not only you have the tools to analyze the data, but the data itself has to be collected and found and gathered. And we talked here internally. Data is, to be frank with you, data is dumb if you don't have the right question. You ask the right question, data will answer you the right way. But if you ask the wrong question, you are not going to go anywhere. So ultimately, we as individuals, we need to make sure that the data is the source of truth, if you will, and then it is aggregated from credible sources. Fair Health is an interesting organization for those of you who do not know them well. It is an organization actually founded as a result of a litigation that the New York State had with Optum Ingenix. For those of you may or may not be aware of it. So this was an effort to basically democratize the data. So the Fair Health is a kind of a crowdsourcing of data, if you will. By being a member, you're able to contribute your data. Of course, the data most of the time is basically de-identified data. But in return, you are able to also access to the vast array of data is being provided to you by the other organizations like yours who has been contributing to data. So you can find medical and surgical data, which basically includes the CPT codes for the evaluation and management of medical, surgical, radiology, laboratory, and pathology procedures. A lot of medical includes the benchmark for fees allowed by plans rather than the fees charged by the providers. So the benchmarks are available by plan type, HMO, PPO, aggregate for CPT codes, including the evaluation and management, again, medical, surgical, and radiology. And dental module includes the CDT codes for approximately 600 distinct dental procedures. And then the list goes on for the obviously inpatient and outpatient facility modules, including the outpatient standard analytical files, as well as the diagnostic related groups, the DRGs. Anesthesia module includes the CPT categories, and finally the healthcare common procedure code, its systems, HCPCS products, supplies, and services not included in CPT codes. So it's a wide array. I highly encourage you to visit their website. We found them to be one of those well-hidden secrets, if you will. And we believe they will be organizations like Fair Health will continue to provide those capabilities. So let's talk about the marketplaces. Why the marketplaces are so important in this landscape altogether. So as probably everybody aware, if you haven't heard about it, I think that it's something to be unavoidable these days about the issues and challenges. We've seen so many new vendor entries to the space. Softheon has been in the business for 15 years. There's a 15-plus years of R&D. And part of our problems that we are facing today, to be frank with you, at least from our perspective, we believe is a result of kind of rushing along the way and building a product that are not really fully tested, QA'd, or proven in the marketplace in general. So in the marketplaces, I think that the big data is something that basically drives the business. And we view the big data. Sometimes, again, the big data doesn't mean that everything has to be in a so vast arrays altogether. We can see the data being accumulated as we go along. And we'll talk about some of our examples along the way. As we talk about the marketplaces, what drives today the shopping experience? It's a good example of use of the big data as far as calculating the rates, for instance. some of the industry practices in other sectors such as financial services or even consumer packaged goods. For instance, there are methodologies and approaches such as conjoint analysis that you decide what the product should be, what is the bearing fees or the price for that product should be in the marketplace. And then you walk back into that price point based on the identified ingredients. It's a good analogy for the healthcare space. As we work with our partners, with our carriers, our goal is to find basically the silver product at the right price point. And working with many regional health plans, we were able to create opportunities where basically we walk into the price point and then generating the product we think that they are quite competitive in that marketplace. So this requires a significant effort and focus around utilizing the data from various states, various product lines, or even ancillary products like life, dental, Cobra. So we have to take all that data into account and help our carriers to successfully succeed in the marketplaces. I'm proud to report to you that we have enrolled over 400,000 lives through ACAs on behalf of all our carriers. So one clear distinction again, we are not just being, we're not talking about being a healthcare.gov that we count every little transaction. The challenge there again, how do you take the data and how do you disseminate the data across so many different players in the marketplaces among our carriers. So we are able to take the data and basically distribute the data in the format that our carriers are able to digest the data, because we, as you can imagine, we have some carriers are running on a 15, 20 years of legacy admin systems, and we have other carriers that are indeed don't have a insurance core admin systems. They have systems like Epic, for instance. So the technology, the use of big data, and the distribution and aggregation of big data is not a system-dependent property altogether. So it is our ability to basically take the data and then provide the data in the format that is expected. Let it be Epic systems, or let it be Facets, or let it be Amesis DST. It is the vendor's responsibility to be able to take that data and transform it into the format that is expected. Once again, combined with the cloud-based value proposition, I think we're going to see the largest penetration of big data implementations in marketplaces. I think ACA is going to continue to become one of the leading quote-unquote opportunities, market opportunities. Again, cloud-based implementations is key to our success. I don't mean to too much brag about it. Our approach, innovative approach, is cloud. Softheon's ability to onboard a new marketplace implementation under 90 days. In fact, we are very much in target to bring that down to even 60, 30 days over the next month or two. It just basically speaks to our ability to process these data and process these activities in so many different ways. So enough about Softheon. Let's step back and talk about the big data and the marketplace opportunities. Why we think that ACA, public exchanges as well as private exchanges. Mr. Bartonelli from Aetna referred to as basically as being a 75 million people will be buying product on the commercial markets. I disagree with Mark to a certain extent. We believe that market is going to be even exceeding 100 million market, and that's it's somewhat justifiable. If we think about it, there are roughly 270 million people, and we got 47 million people, 18% uninsured. And if we simply make that insured to uninsured rate, the individuals are now buying products on the marketplaces, and the number roughly about 100 million. Plus or minus, even if we do about 5 or 10%, that number is still going to be well in excess of, in its current capacity, that 8 million number, which we believe that number is actually does not include the effectuated. It all includes enrolled, not the effectuated. Effectuation numbers probably will be a lot lesser than that. Even if we do, again, the number of potentials is well in excess of, if not close to, 100 million individuals. And we can look at their data in a slightly different format too, by the way. Again, as you all know by now, that there are 8 million people apply for insurance. If you look at it, these are the latest numbers were issued by CMS earlier about the 98 million people have actually visited the marketplaces. So if you try to make that simple analogy, 98 million visitors to 8 million applicants, so there's a ratio of basically a 12 to 1. So as we call it in here, every 12th person walk into your store, only one person buying the product. So this goes back to one of the earlier slides we talked about it. Do you want to build an infrastructure in-house to take into account that 12 customers that you're going to walk in, only one? Because historically, many insurance companies were not really designed to take that suspect prospect into their systems altogether, because ultimately these systems are designed to be basically a kind of really a purpose optimized systems, if you will, and ability to handle large sets of data basically adversely affect their performance as well as their long-term availability, sustainability, operations, and so on and so forth. So being able to do all these application marketplace processes as well as the processing of the big data on the cloud is clearly a method that we believe is continued to propagate really well among the healthcare payers. And since now we are fully PCI HIPAA compliant, and Softheon being one of the unique cloud vendors out there who will then sign a BA agreements with the carriers, we become purely an extension of the IT organizations in essence, with upside all the assets, all the capabilities, all the subject matter expertise that we are able to provide basically without the risk of making those investments. Because the thing about the data processing and analytics in this new world is turning into, you will have some peak periods. It's going to require perhaps hundreds of servers to manage the data, process the data. And case in point, once the open enrollment ends, you are then able to provision and release those servers. So organizations like Softheons, and there are a few ones out there that are able to perform these products and services too without you out, meaning that the health carriers are going out and making these major purchases and expenditures, and then basically then try to look for ways to kind of either amortize those things over the period of times or being able to maintain and sustain those operations. So total cost of ownership, it becomes something very, very difficult to maintain. Whereas working with cloud-based healthcare services companies and technology companies like Softheon, we were able to provide those products and services. So great things about that, whether that applicants number is 8 million or truly maybe effectuated number, we believe in the vicinity of 5.5, maybe a little around that number. It's basically, we're talking about somewhere from the 12 to 1 to 20 to 1 conversion rate. So that you need to be able to, in other words, that you need to have a system that is capable of 20 times the capacity of your current system. So you want to be able to leverage these highly specialized infrastructure that are being built on the internet as part of your extension to your organizations. Another good reference point about that, big data analytics, and the numbers do not align. We are going through a very turbulent and great uncertainty. Just like where somebody may see a risk, we see an opportunity. We think that there is going to be 100+ million individuals will be needing a technology, using the technology to purchase, maintain, and deliver healthcare systems. So in that context, I think that one great contrast is what's really happening in the co-op space. As you can imagine, these organizations kind of had basically just about a year to build their operation from scratch. And if you look into the numbers, being a co-op, they're a little bit more transparent in terms of their projections and what they're being. This is basically a Wall Street Journal article as of last Thursday, that you can see that significant number of co-ops actually failed to meet their projections. Clearly, every one of them is intended to be a successful business entity. What we are trying to highlight with this slide is basically the things may not go as you plan. And we also know that on the private carrier space, we met with executive, the CIOs, spending basically several millions of dollars, and yet they were only insured several thousand people, and within the several thousand, they are now subject to an adverse selection with multiple transplants and so on and so forth. And then you have the examples like the Health Republican in New York, basically has, projecting 20,000 membership. They ended up in the vicinity of basically 100, in excess of 100,000. So to us, that's a good process, maybe a good story to tell, but it also, I'm sure for those of you are dealing with that kind of a massive influx, that has its own challenges. Do you have the proper infrastructure to support and sustain and maintain those memberships? And so on and so forth. I think the big data approach to ACA marketplaces and with the partnership with companies like, for instance, Softheon, gives you that quote-unquote really the upside of it. The risk becomes mitigated to your partners, and your partners' responsibility to build in that technology, the infrastructure, whether to scale them up or scale it down. The risks are not being passed on to it. So traditionally, what we have seen, healthcare organizations, carrier insurance, creating these investments, making these investments, creating these very complex systems, which is needed. What we are seeing that instead of creator and owner and operator, the insurer carriers, we're seeing that as a governor of these products and services by leveraging even products on the, let it be on various clouds, including, as you know, recently, in fact, we have a last slide, we're going to talk about that, the CMS's presentation about the use of the Amazon Web Services for the edge server needs. So there is definitely a recognized opportunity there. And we are really excited to see, even at the federal level, that's being the use of cloud technologies are being promoted to address certain set of challenges as it relates to the ACA marketplaces. So what do we do with that data? Given the uncertainty on the upside, we are able to get the data. So there are some our analytics from our data analytics among the 400,000 memberships that we have done this. And as you can see that one of the key thing about the big data vendors, like Softheon being one of them, we are able to provide you a real-time ACA analytics. So you can see the data in so many different ways. Basically, being the vendor, being you and the carrier being the governor of that systems altogether, it in fact gives you a tremendous upside in terms of vendors' ability to meet certain SLAs, a vendor's ability to create a transparent systems, because ultimately we are not just talking about the simple data storage capabilities. We are far beyond product like Dropbox or a few others, cloud storage. This is true data processing on the cloud. So what we do need to do is we would like to ask our carrier partners, even for those of you who are looking to maybe evaluate at the various marketplace, private and public exchange platform, that you should ask these questions. The questions such as, how do I get my SLAs around the uptimes and whatnot, but beyond that, how do I get my SLAs around the payment processing, for instance, your lockbox processing, your cancellations and terminations, and even during the series of period of open enrollment, for instance, how do I get my basically metrics and benchmarks around the particular part of the demographic-wise, which counties that where my enrollments is the most, whereas the which areas that as basically has not been so successful, so I can manage my field operation, my brokers, both captive and my contractors effectively. So big data, we capture the data so many different places. And clearly obvious ones that there are some few surprises here, as you can see. Across the board, our experience in the space being that we have basically nearly 27% of cancellation terminations, and then obviously waiting payments. We hope that 6% will turn into, we're still in the final phases of this enrollment process, if you will. So on the plus side, it'll be about 20% cancellation, or so 21%. On the negative side, it may be as high as maybe 25, 26%. This is again based on the initial enrollment processing. Another important factor, the use of the credit cards, it's far exceeded anyone's expectation. We have been working with one of the first state exchanges for quite some time, where actual credit card usage was not even in the picture at all. But with the ACAs and the way the laws were being basically provisioned, the credit card usage among all our carriers in excess of 64%. So that represents another set of challenges, obviously. Let it be from the processing of those payments. Once again, you need to take into account of various data processing activities about non-sufficient funds, duplicate payments, and refunds, and so on and so forth. All those things are being coming in so many different ways. Again, that speaks to the variety and the velocity of the data as we talked about it. Many systems, if not all systems, for instance, that Softheon supports and delivers to our carriers, is all real time. So we are able to provide all that information in real time with real-time alert and so on and so forth. So some of the metrics on that line of thought are, you're seeing a small sampling of some of our reportings. For instance, again, talks about the visualization of big data analytics. So if I were to give you that instead of that heat map, for instance, what's shown in here, if I were to display it as a simple Excel spreadsheet, like along the way the columns on zip codes, probably that would not mean too much to someone who's looking at the data. However, we are able to do some various techniques on this data, and we're looking to do obviously simple pie charts and bar graphs and whatnot. Once again, the real-time analytics that empowers your sales team on the field, telling exactly which counties, which zip codes, where the efforts should be focused on to be able to drive the maximum return on investment that you're making. During the open enrollment, I'm pleased to say that we have some of our carriers done phenomenally well because of this kind of business intelligence that we are able to provide on the data that as we collect on a daily basis. So as we continue our progress, we are also looking to another exciting area. So one being that mobile, as we just talked about it. We have applications today rolled out to some of our selective, what we call our innovative program, if you will. One being the mobile payment platforms. Our ability to speak to the certain demographics. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. The people that don't like to be on the internet on their desktops, but they are constantly connected on their smartphones, running some applications, and they definitely don't want to talk to somebody on the phone to tell them about their how they want to make a payment. For those individuals, that demographics, that 18 to 35 age group, we see have phenomenal visual success as far as giving them the ability to make a payment real time on their mobile platforms. And as you do these activities, as you can see, we are able to then capture all that information in real time and being able to feed that information to the various systems, not just for the purpose of obviously payment, consumer behavior applications, but you can easily see in this ecosystem that has been evolving, for instance, companies like HealthSpark, for instance, how they utilize the data, or some companies like Castlight, as we look into the creating platforms that, again, data-driven platforms, better healthcare, better delivery, better cost control with the various cost transparency tools. So we believe that this is another dimension on big data. We're talking about being able to capture literally second by second individuals' activities, and this data could be easily feed into the various enrollment eligibility tools, especially at the point of service about individuals' eligibility, and being able to capture all the critical aspect of their care. As we move forward to it, as you know, one of the immediate deliverables will be many of you, the health plans, as we are looking to the wrapping up 2014, the focus will be around the edge server implementations, or 3R conditions. For those of you, again, I suspect that many of you have been already been well versed into what's really taking place. But the 3R programs ultimately is looking to a data where the carriers will be providing an enrollment data, cumulative enrollment data, as well as medical and pharmaceutical claims data. so that the CMS will be able to maintain and calculate those basically the reinsurance and risk corridors and risk adjustments, so that no one carrier kind of penalized with the adverse selection. The ultimate goal is being that as a system has to be sustainable years to come. We use that data so many different ways. One of our efforts is that how we can leverage the data in operational aspect to it. So at the next AHIP conference, we will love to show you and discuss you how to utilize that claims data as part of our enrollment activities, and driving, again, another dimension, another element of the use of the big data as we refer to it. So our closing remarks in here about the big data, we could not be more excited about the CMS's guidance to, in fact, encouraging the health plans to use the Amazon Web Services, and also, commonly known as basically the home or house of the big data. And once again, we would like the choice. I think that the choice has always been the excellent way to validate a particular concept or a product. And once again, we highly encourage you all to start looking to big data as another way of perhaps a new paradigm of how you collect the data, how you transform the data, and how to extract the data for business intelligence and analytics needs, as well as, in this case, meeting a particular government ACA requirements, if you will. So with that in mind, thank you very much for your time. At this point, we will be happy to take your questions.
Thank you. To ask a question via the web presentation, please select the chat pod located in the lower left corner of your screen, type your question, and hit the Send button. Our first question came in approximately around slide 12 and 13, if that assists. Does this slide show unique visitors or number of visits? So did the 98 million unique individuals visit the exchange website?
Sure. Again, what we are reporting to you, what was reported by a CMS, and according to the numbers that we've gathered, these are individuals, unique visitors. So in essence, that again, there may be an element of individuals coming on board and creating different IDs, which we have seen a great number of occurrences that, in fact, towards the end of it, and we continue to deal with the CIC conditions altogether. So individuals, high number of individuals dropping their current coverages, or quote unquote, returning the goods they bought, and they go back to the store, in another store perhaps buying different products. But the numbers, at least from our understanding, is basically the unique visitors. So to us, that kind of represents the overall market potentials overall altogether. So yes, the short answer is the unique visitors.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question, what is the importance of big data as it relates to private and public exchanges? What are the data sources?
That's a great question. So the data sources, as we ran into this year's problem, as you know, this is one of the biggest. You can see from that, probably you saw it from that the co-op enrollment slides. Some of the carriers have taken their traditional product lines and they try to map into the ACA marketplaces under the QHP certification process, and then we've seen some really very creative products altogether that are being produced, quote unquote, almost kind of from scratch, from new products. And we're seeing a very diverse methods are being developed. We're seeing a lot of kind of very narrow network, even ultra narrow networks to drive the cost down, if you will. So the big data in the context of consumer packaged goods or consumer products based altogether is the products that are designed based on the conjoint analysis. So it takes into the account of your demographics, obviously, down to the climate perhaps, and down to the income levels or education. Products has to be designed with those attributes in place, even though ACA does not permit the complex underwriting beyond tobacco use and age and so on and so forth. But what we are seeing is actually in reality some of the carriers have taken those disparate elements, if you will, from so many different sources. I mean, we are able to, now that we know that 64% of our members are using credit card, we will take that into account as the next year's kind of product pricing, if you will, and then our rate calculations for next year will be based on those values. If I push that on the private exchange side, I think you're going to even see even a greater diversity in terms of the products that are being kind of developed and designed, and then especially ancillary products, as we refer to, a lot of vision or dental, down to the travel insurance, even pet insurance. So we're going to see a great, I think that the diversity of the product and services sold through private and public exchanges. And we are absolutely delighted to be working with some of those most innovative people in the business, and looking forward to adding value to those organizations with our expertise on domain knowledge on the space of data.
Excellent. Thank you, Eugene. Our next question, apart from exchange connectors, what are the other services from Softheon for issuers selling on the marketplace?
Well, thank you. This is another topic again. We like data. We very much enjoy looking at opportunities to add value. In fact, one area that we are working today, and this is an application that we're looking to bring to the insurance space, and we're already working with the insurers. One of them is identity management. Today we're transitioning from an attestation-based, face-to-face interactions where the brokers are able to communicate with the employers, and there's a certain element of trust in the system, so to speak. And as we transition into this fully electronic world, the identity management and fraud management is going to be a critical aspect of the business, because we can see so many opportunities that this new method can be easily kind of abused in that area. So today, for instance, we are able to prompt you with a question, and many of us may have gone through a similar experience as you are applying for perhaps a credit card or a mortgage online. What we call the information is not in your wallet. We are able to ask those questions to someone who's in our exchange portal looking to enroll, because what we don't want to do is that person to be a fraud to begin with, and the very next minute after they make a payment using their ID cards, we don't want to see those individuals go in what we call basically a pill farming. So as you can see, common phenomena that we are seeing is that, as you know, the prescription drug abuse in this country is even a bigger problem than the narcotic drug abuse, and the fraud has been the primary source of that basically illegal activity. So identity management, authentication services as a cloud services, imagine that we are able to provide them, bring to the carriers altogether. And down to the point about that, how do you verify someone's income? And we believe, and Softheon was one of the companies on behalf of all our 20-plus health plans, we provided direct enrollment. For those of you who know a little bit about direct enrollment, we are able to create a completely personalized, branded, carrier-branded websites, whereas the individual, if they want a subsidy, if they want assistance from the federal government, we are able to send those individuals back to healthcare.gov. In first year was basically a kind of we call a URL redirect. We believe the next year or the years after, if we follow the CMS's promises along the line, and those will be more like cloud services that we are able to call and then get that information back from the federal. And in fact, we believe this will be another big initiative on the federal side, is what we call the big data, big government in that context, not to be politically referenced altogether, but we are talking about making those data elements, the services available via cloud services that we are able to tap into those things so that we can calculate your individuals, for instance, residency. We're able to get that information. We're able to get information about some of their assets. Again, this is all based on a consent-driven, attestation-based driven applications that we are able to utilize various products and services on the initial enrollment eligibility component to it, and subsequently in both the pharmacy as well as the medical claims, and curbing the fraud aspect from the healthcare, and therefore bring some additional references and efficiencies.
Thank you. Our next question. Apart from enrollment statistics, are there any statistics on care-related services for people enrolled in ACA plans? How different are those from regular commercial products? Also, are there any statistics on the subsidy reimbursement processes?
I'll answer the last question first, maybe. So we as a organization working, again, under the guidance of the management of the health plan, we are able to produce some pretty interesting statistics about the financial aspect of these activities of the memberships on the both ACA public exchanges as well as on the private exchanges. As clearly, utilizing some of the data, we are able to better predict the sustainability of the QHPs, either by metal tiers or by service areas or even by demographic. So we are able to produce what we call it, in fact, a member level P&L use of the big data. And again, these are exciting products that we are bringing onto the market and then evaluating these options with our early adopters. As far as the use of the care-related data and product and services, clinical data, perhaps in more general terms, we believe that there will be a point in time, which is going to be very soon, in our opinion, where the continuity of care and continuity of the medical-related information will become a part of the overall enrollment, all the way up from the enrollment process to the administration and delivery of the care altogether. As you know, the ACA is, in its current format, kind of limits the type of risk assessment questions that individuals are required to answer during the enrollment process. But I think on the commercial side, on the quote-unquote the non-ACA exchanges, if you will, in general, I'll generalize this term, because the private exchange concept could be construed in one way, as you can imagine. What we are seeing is their carrier building their own consumer-facing exchanges, very much like the airline carriers create these web portals and mobile apps to service to their VIP customers, their gold medallions and so on and so forth. So as a frequent flyer, I'll go to the carrier's website where I'm going to be able to do this, because those products and services will not be available through Expedia. That's not the core competency of the Expedia Travelocity, quote-unquote, the multi-carrier exchanges. So there's a clear distinction about these exchange implementations, and depending upon which exchange you're in and which platform you're in, I think that we will see some applications and some services where the care-related data will be utilized as part of the enrollment and ongoing delivery of care services.
Excellent. Thank you, Eugene. We have no further questions. Any quick closing comments, Eugene?
No, we wanted to thank you again, AHIP, for this wonderful opportunity. We are very delighted to have quite a few turnout at this event. So that's a good indication that I think that among our colleagues and friends that as turbulent and difficult year was 2013-2014 open enrollment. I think we are at the cusp of beginning of a great change, great transformation, and we are truly excited to be kind of making the history as we go along. And we will be delighted to hear from the audience if you have any context, any information that you would like to proceed. My last slide will be my personal contact information. I look forward to hearing back from you all. If not, I look forward to speaking with you at the next AHIP event. And thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you for that great presentation and for sharing your thoughts today. And thank you to the audience for participating in today's conference. That concludes this webinar. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.